Good evening. Before we start tonight's program, this is a reminder that this episode will address topics related to addiction. Pure discretion is advised. We remind you to please consult your doctor, your mental health professional, your outreach group, your sponsor or specialist before adopting any change to your dietary, physical, and/or mental health regime. If you're looking for options to go down the road in detecting and treating your addictions, contact SAMHSA, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, at 1-800-662-4357. Again, that's 1-800-662-4357. Or go to samhsa.gov. The service is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and is a confidential, free information service for individuals and family members facing addictions, amongst other mental health and or substance use disorders. And on that, let's begin. A few weeks ago, when we started the venture forward, I talked about how overeating is my chief addiction, and basically was a springboard for all the other addictions that affected me in this journey. Tonight we're going to revisit food addiction. We're going to talk about not only the purpose of tracking macronutrients and calories, but also being aware of other food addictions that may occur, such as sugar. We'll talk about all of that tonight. This is The Venture Forward. Good evening, or good morning, or good afternoon, wherever you may be. And hello, I'm John Venturini. I'm a recovering addict. Of overeating, alcoholism, and gambling compulsion, or compulsive gambling, rather. A few months ago, I decided that I really needed to go down this road as far as telling my story. So I started journaling, I started putting stuff together. Within the last 2 months, the idea of coming up with a live stream to tell the story became more and more evident. And when we started the Venture Forward back in mid-October, I realized that I needed to address the very first thing that was my chief addiction, and that of overeating. But what I learned over 2 years is it takes more than tracking your calories and your macronutrients to, basically come up with a better form of life as far as how you take food in, how you eat, how you consume things. So tonight, we're going to go back and talk about, one, what the brass tacks is, as far as how I lost the weight, but moreover, becoming a better sort of, consumer of food, a better sort of idea of you have to have a good idea of the quality of the food you take in addition to the quantity. So we'll talk about all of that tonight. Part of it is stuff that we covered on episode 2 and episode 3. But part of it's going to be other things about some of the things that we gravitate to when we talk about our love of food. And I don't know about you, but I'm a foodie. Still am a foodie. Never going to back away from the concept of being a foodie. I think the one thing I will say now is I'm very careful about how I consume food and being a better sort of consumer of all things I eat, meals and whatnot. So we'll talk about that in a second. But I want to say hi to you, the people that have joined me on YouTube and Facebook tonight. Sarah, how are you? Hope you're having a great evening. Hope all is well over by you. Des over in Australia, I hope you're having a good day. And I know for sure this is something we've talked about too, so I can't wait to talk about this a bit more. Sherry, how are you? Also from Australia. Hope you're doing all right. Amen to you too. And Sean, hope you're doing well this evening. Hope you're having a great night as well. I think one of the things that is going to be very evident by the time we get done of the story tonight is how this basically is a springboard to other things that we became addicted to. And we'll talk about that when we start talking about sugar in about 10 minutes. But, you could form addictions to a lot of different kinds of foods and a lot of different kinds of food additives. Not necessarily food additives, but things that are found in food. And, it just becomes a question of how better conscious we are about what we are taking in, for sure. Before I start going into my slides, Sherry says, my addiction is iced coffee, trying to cut back and consume only 1 liter a day. Sherry, I gotta say, it is, coffee and caffeine is definitely still an addiction for me. I find that I need the caffeine to be awake, but I've gotten a lot better as far as how much caffeine I take in a given day. Will I ever get down from, say, a liter, from 33 ounces? I don't know, but at some point. And I think come the first of the year, that's going to be something that gets a lot more scrutiny as far as what I do, for sure. Murd, I hope you're doing well. Good evening to you. And let's talk about this. We call this another look at food because we've talked about this before. But I think in light of the holiday season, in light of Thanksgiving and, Christmas, Hanukkah, and the December holidays, it's just a good reminder of where we're coming from as far as what we consume. And I think it's always good to talk about exactly where I've come from. So let's take a quick step back and see exactly where I came from. If we go back to January of 2019, December 2018, I was 480 pounds. I absolutely had no handle on this idea of consuming food. I've basically given back the process that I've done twice before because of other factors that we've talked about in the preceding weeks. The thing that I have to keep in mind is it's something, as we much know from what we know from alcoholism and from gambling and from other addictions, that this is something we always need to keep an eye on. And we could form a healthier relationship with food, but if we don't stay on top of it, I know, at least in my case, I can give it back. I truly think the next time I give it back, it will kill me, for sure. So what are we talking about exactly? We're talking about, in the course of 2 years, losing 277 pounds. I still sit here in disbelief about how much weight I've lost, but moreover, how everything else followed from that. If you remember the story I told in the beginning, that I was in the middle of an airport asking for the almighty power, for the universe, to remove the roadblocks that stood in my way. The first roadblock that had to be removed was the 400, basically the extra weight on 480 pounds, the 277 extra pounds that were on me that afternoon in Raleigh, in the middle of an airport. That's what it basically rolls down to, is that, understanding that. So what does that mean? I go from a world where I looked like the gentleman on the left to the gentleman that's on the right. It took a lot of hard work, and I gotta say, there were a lot of other mitigating circumstances there that made the light bulbs go off. But I think it all starts with how I consume food, with how I consume and live my life. Now, were there other things? Absolutely. Walking, exercise, all of that. But it started with the diet. Without question, it started with the diet. Some comments. Sarah says, the holidays can be tough because we have so many associations with special holiday foods. Being Italian, absolutely, right? I don't know how many times special foods were on the dinner table for Thanksgiving or Christmas or Easter or whatnot. So I mean, we pride ourselves on holiday food, whether it's those holidays or others, right? So it's having a better sense of self-control, doing dishes a bit more nutritionally smart, I guess. But being aware of what we're doing and keeping that sort of big picture always in light. Sarah then says, completely amazing. I've lost more than 2 of you. Sarah, thank you. Thank you for saying that. I never am at a loss of words when I think about where my life was previously. You basically summed it up in that one statement, and I appreciate that, and I thank you, for sure. Sean says, that's an amazing side-by-side, shows your determination and strength. It was something that I realized if I don't do it for myself now and I don't keep it off, there is no alternative. Like it says on my board, there are no alternatives now. This is what it's about. There's no way to go back. There's no reason to go back. If I don't do it now and I don't keep it off, what does that mean? I'm sure he says ditto to Sean. So we look at the side-by-side and we talk about exactly the intrinsic features of the sort of dietary regime I went under. It started at 480 pounds back in January of 2019. As of this morning, December 8th, I weighed in at 203. And for me, it was a question of macronutrient and caloric tracking, in the sense that caloric reduction was definitely at play here. You're talking to a guy who used to eat 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 calories without question, would have 2 to 3 big meals a day, had his treasure trove of just horrific things I would eat. Now, I watch everything I eat. Now, that's not to say that I don't go out for a meal every now and then. I absolutely do. But I think I'm a lot smarter about how I consume it, and I try to track everything. It's high protein, 100 grams or more of protein per day. Modified carbohydrates in that it's 100 grams or less of net carbs per day. And for me, low sugar, 40 grams or less of sugar per day. Preferably natural sugars from fruit and that of blueberries, and more recently, small bananas. I gravitate to bananas because I have a bit of, it goes back to the family line for a second, a potassium issue. So one small banana a day is usually helping me from there too. Those Charlie horses could be a pain for sure, literally. So that's what it is. And this is all, being modified over time and walking down that road. As you see in parentheses, it was 1,200 to 1,500 calories in the beginning to sort of shock the system into place. But now it's a little bit more relaxed because I'm closer to where I want to be in goal. I look at a goal of 180, but right now at 203, I'm very happy where I am. I'm a lot happier now than I was at 480. That's for sure. What is that food journey? You track every day. I am a big believer in tracking. Now, I know there's some people, especially in our groups, that say, hey, diets are not what you're supposed to do. And I agree. At a certain point, this should become your sort of thought process about how you consume food, how you exercise, so on and so forth. I think when I get down to this, it's like if I track every day, I can see exactly what I'm consuming. I know that cheat days are fine as long as I'm being honest with myself. I know it's a marathon, not a sprint. Certainly, when you have an overall goal of 300 pounds to lose, it's definitely a marathon. I would say almost like a triathlon and then some, isn't it? And then with the extra energy, move around more, walking, cardio, weight training, etc. I've mentioned this in the recovery groups before, and no, I guess I can go there for a quick second. With respect to this story, it's always been a question of first fixing the mind or getting your mind to a better place, understanding what your mind's doing, then the diet, and then exercise. When you're 480 pounds, so it's very hard to move about. Very hard to start, basically going to the gym 3, 4, 5 hours a day. You would find a cardiologist that would say, that may not be a good idea. Did I actually get that sort of detailed rating from a cardiologist? No. But I'm glad to say that my levels, my numbers, are better than they've ever been. I got a resting heart rate of about 62 right now. Whereas if you turn back the clock in 2019, you're talking to someone who had a resting heart rate of 95, 100, 105. Like, I'm working out, and yet I'm just staying right here because my heart is working that hard. So it's definitely the journey for sure. It goes to a question of BMR, basal metabolism rate. We talked about this on episode 1.2. It's based on your height, your weight, and your age. There are two main formulas out there, whether it's the Harris-Benedict equation or the Mifflin-St. Jean equation. I use an application called Lose It. Big believer in it. This is not a promotion for Lose It, because quite frankly, you can use whatever tracking software you use, whether it's that or you do something like Weight Watchers, what have you. I just am a big believer that you track it, you have a good sense of what's going on, and you work from there. What you find, though, is this, and something that I did not mention on the first full week of this show. Calories and macros don't tell the entire story. And you almost have to be aware of your addictions with sugar, fat, and salt. And I will get to that in a second. A couple comments have come in, and let me talk to that real quickly. Sarah says, there's no reason to go back. Love that. Yeah, there really is no reason to go back. Quite frankly, anything else could be suicidal if you ask me. Des says, I gave up alcohol and went straight to fatty food and sweet food. I seem to be battling some sort of addiction. Yeah, you are. I know I was, for sure. Sarah says, it takes time, but it becomes natural, in part because it no longer feels good to eat crap and you don't crave it. Sarah, amen. Absolutely. That's spot on. When we talk about the sugar addiction in a couple minutes, you'll see what I mean by that. Hey, Christina, how are you? Hope you're doing well. So let me go back to the DAC real quick here. So when we talk about sugar addiction, especially off the heels of Halloween and the holidays where there's sweet foods all over the place, processed food and refined grains create additional sugar in the body once the body metabolizes the food. What do we mean by processed foods? It's more than just eating the candy. it's more than eating the candy canes off of the Christmas tree or eating those incredible Italian desserts, right? It's sugars can come in the most seamless of places. They could be in salad dressings. They could be in grains. They could be in all of that. The more we consume of it, the more our metabolism starts feeling that dopamine sort of drop from sugar. So sugar in moderation is not harmful. But I know for a fact, and I know many people I know, overdo it. A recent study suggests that Americans eat far too much sugar. And I will guarantee you that you could replace the word Americans with just people around the world. Eat way too much sugar. Sugar's become part of everybody's sort of dietary regime. There was a study done where 75% of Americans eat excess amounts of sugar, many of whom could be classified as having a sugar addiction. And it goes back to dopamine. You think about the dopamine release of eating food that you're comforted to, that sort of sugary food, and people crave that, so they consume more of that. The thing is, though, when we think about sugar consumption, we think about disorders not only of obesity. Oh, darn, I was a class 4 morbidly obese gentleman. I was upper 60s, low 70s as far as BMI. But it's also a question of diabetes. And if you have a family history of diabetes, it's something where you have to keep a close eye on. You might have to get your sugar checked. You might have to see how you are sort of tied to either type 1 diabetes or type 2 diabetes. And the thing is, if you overindulge in sugar and you have that sort of track record with your family, you're putting yourself at risk of needing to take insulin or take other diabetes medicine. The other interesting thing, and all of this information went through not only the NIH, but the Addiction Center as well. It's similar to other compulsions and other behavioral addictions. It's basically something that is key and a risk to people that have low moods, anxiety, stress. I know with the jobs I have, definitely high on anxiety, definitely high on stress, and the moods weren't the greatest, especially if you turn back the clock 2 years. I think now, consuming things a lot better, not really so much of a problem now, but it also goes part and parcel in the fact that I'm consuming the right foods, I'm taking good care of myself, I am active, and I'm keeping all of that together. Sherry says, everything in moderation is the best way to go. Absolutely. It's like anything in life, any sort of behavior we have. Moderation is always the key. We need to have a happy balance of everything across the board. So now let's talk about something that affects us big time. There is a surprising genetic link between children of parents who abuse alcohol and their sugar addiction. This was done in an NIH article, NIH study back 10 years ago. Fortuna and a few other scientists basically did this in a paper called Sweet Preference, Sugar Addiction, and the Familial History of Alcohol Dependence, Shared Neural Pathways in Genes. The dopamine receptors in the brain light up when we consume sugar, similar to the receptors that light up when someone abuses alcohol. And then if you combine the two worlds together and you think about, okay, you go out and you drink and you drink and you drink, what do you do to basically absorb the alcohol? I don't know, French fries? I know that was the case with me. And if you look at a major fast food chain, like ones that have golden arches, which I won't mention by name, they use sugar in the preparation of that food or the preservation of that food. So now you're, again, combining those worlds together. They can encourage people who struggle with sweets into alcoholism or moderate alcohol consumption. Absolutely. And the thing is, you're talking about something that is already processed as sugar. So it's basically, now you're dumping sugar on top of sugar and the body's craving more sugar, so you have this sort of incredible sort of melange of just more sugar on top of sugar. using starchy carbohydrates that have sugar in it. It's craziness. Absolute craziness. So we talk about sugar. We talk about the fact that we drink sodas. We eat candies that have sugar in it, so on and so forth. What's the thing we usually do when we try to back away from sugar? Well, we go to sugar-free or zero sugar sort of sodas, zero sugar sort of candies and sodas that have aspartame or sucralose in it. There's a danger in that too. Before I go there, I want to quickly show a couple more comments and then we'll talk about that. Sherry says, well, I was on the other end. BMI was 8 about 6 years ago. So, yes, we've focused a lot of time on overweight and obesity on the venture forward. But being at 8 is just as much dangerous as anything. You're basically depriving your body of just the nutrients and sort of minerals it needs to live a life. And I'm not to put this question out there, but of course I'll put the question out there. Sherry, if you want to talk about that at some point, I definitely want to hear about the story from the other end, because that is so important. And knowing how healthy you are now and the way you basically have gravitated to a healthier way of life, I definitely want to hear your story for sure. Sherry says BMI 20 is the healthy average. Yeah. 25 is the cutoff line for being overweight. You'll find a lot of people that will debate that until they're blue in the face. I truly think that the BMI sort of metric is a bit dated. I know people that are in the high 20s that are very healthy. So I think there are more factors at play, more ratios, more calculations that need to happen. Waist-hip ratio is one of them. Body fat calculation, actual body fat calculation is another one. So, yeah, to go straight BMI is not necessarily the only story we need to tell when trying to assess someone's health. Sarah says alcohol is processed as sugar by the body. Yep, absolutely. And, the fact is anything that creates more sugar within our internal systems is something we have to keep a close eye on. If we have too much sugar, we run the risk of obesity and diabetes and anything that talks to a human being that's consumed way too much sugar. Sean says, this is fascinating. I would have never made that connection. Not many people do, Sean. And that's the thing. I didn't make that connection for a long time. I think now, in the last 2 years, that connection's become more and more apparent to me. The thing is, I'm just going to be honest for a second. When I lost the weight the first time, we go back to 2001, 2002. I was in my mid-20s. I understand I was severely obese, so 425. But I wasn't looking exactly at the quality of food I was eating, as well as I know that I was going to the gym and realizing I needed to watch calories in versus calories out. That's what it ended up being. Because I never had a good handle of that, I never had a good emotional attachment to alcohol, to food, to consumption, to that way of life. I guess one could also make the sense, as I almost said, alcohol. Yeah, sure. I know I'm alcoholic, so that's not even a question for me. It went back. It quickly came back because I didn't track anymore. I had a change of life and a lot of things that were going on that just didn't have me understanding quantity or understanding the quality of what I was eating. So then I put the weight back to a high 440. As soon as I dropped down to 180 in 2002, by 2010 I was at 440. So I lost 200 and change, put back 200 and change. So at 440, I go down the road again. And I think then I try to combine a lot of the things I learned the first time with the sort of tracking of food, but also working out, also big on weight training, also big on cardiovascular. And it worked around for a little while, but again, it goes back to that sort of mental sort of complexion, that sort of what's going on up here. So eventually it came back on. Both times, whether it's 2001 or 2010, 2011, it was basically an exercise in what I'm consuming versus how much I'm exerting and keeping that very simplistic. I think more and more, though, I realize the quality of the food that we eat is so very important. Tracking the protein, tracking the carbohydrates, tracking the sugar. Um, we can't ignore that. At least I know for a fact I can't. So it's something that we have to be very cognizant of as far as trying to come up with a lifestyle that works for us, a nutrition that works for us. We have to be very understanding of all that. Sherry says, yes, I totally agree. Should replace soda with water, not sugar free. Yeah. For me, sparkling water. Sparkling water is big. Tea is big for me. Um, I try to stay away from soda as much as I can. Only in rare cases will I have a sugar-free soda, no sugar soda, but that's very rare. I don't do it much. It's only a situation where I might not feel well and I want ginger ale, and I should just go for ginger tea, but again, I go for ginger ale. Doesn't make it necessarily correct, but if you understand that you can put everything in moderation, that's the most important thing for sure. Sherry says, as our mental health state improves, so does our thinking. Absolutely. I think the other side of that, though, is very important. When we see it starting to wane for one reason or another, other mitigating factors, other mitigating resources, influences, we have to be truthful and have, as we would say for alcoholism or for narcotics or anything else, we need a relapse plan. We have to understand what is the sort of window we have as far as our weight's concerned, and then working towards getting to a better place in case we don't have moderation, in case we waver on the other end, and we try to get things back to try to get ourselves back to a normal state, what we want our normal to say. I don't want to use the term the new normal, but what our ideal, our healthy normal should be. That says when you give up alcohol, your body is still craving the sugar you're getting from the alcohol. Absolutely. That's why when you're talking about people that are detoxing, that are giving up alcohol, that are not drinking anymore, there's a lot of stories as far as what is their dietary regime as well, because there's that sort of sugar sort of impact, carbohydrate sort of impact to those that used to be alcohol, or no, not used to be, but those that are alcoholic that used to imbibe. You never are or formerly an alcoholic, you always are an alcoholic. So those that used to be heavy drinkers and that heavy sugar sort of impact, they have to keep an eye on that portion as well. The tricky thing about food, as we talked about back in October, is this: you can't give up food. We all have to consume food in order to live. We have to consume, your basic sort of sense of grains, your basic sense of proteins, things that make us whole. It doesn't have to be grains per se. I'm just saying things that we can consume that make us whole, that make our right mineral sort of content, etc. I think if we don't do that and we just starve ourselves, that's not good either. It's just the flip side of it. So our relationship with food has to be a lot better. And also understanding what we're doing to ourselves from a nutritional sort of standpoint, for sure. Sean says, getting a soda stream was huge for me. Just being able to make my own seltzer, sparkling water is great. Yeah, big on the soda stream. I'm actually in the process of getting another soda stream because my other one broke. So it's just weird. I got sleeves of club soda in my fridge right now. But nonetheless, sparkling water, club soda is the way I go. Sean says, John, that makes me think of the scene in Clean and Sober when he's eating 1,000,000 Hershey's Kisses. So you give up the alcohol, And not to use an IFS, an internal family systems term for a second, you're using the firefighter now of sugar to replace the alcohol. At some point, that sort of enhanced or overconsumption of sugar needs to go by the wayside as well. But yeah, I remember that scene. And you think about what alcoholics do with sugar, eating candy and whatnot. It's a scene that's very evident of that. Let's go back to the deck for real quick here and talk about the dangers of aspartame and sucralose. So, I don't know about you, but I used to drink way so much diet soda. I used to drink Coke Zero and Diet Coke and Diet Pepsi like it grew on a tree. When you go to my refrigerator, whether it was here or going way back to college, you want to see my dorm room fridge. It was loaded with Diet Coke, loaded with Diet Pepsi. The thing is, there is a sort of a neurological effect of that, as folks in the National Institute of Health are definitely figuring out now. Studies on neurobehavioral effects of aspartame consumption. And also, you could throw sucralose in that category as well, from the sense of now they're trying to figure out the behavioral effects of Splenda, Equal, and sucrose. The thing is this, and this is my inference on that. That's what the bottom line is. Overdependence on any sort of food, whether it's natural or artificial, can cause havoc on one's diet. Be it sugar, a sugar substitute, too much salt, too much fat. The thing is this. It goes back to moderation. And also understanding if there's something that is gravitating you to eating or drinking, beverage-wise, way too much than you should. Do you like Diet Pepsi? Sure. Do you need to drink 6 cans of Diet Pepsi? No. And the fact of the matter is, if you go through the ingredient list of any sort of diet soda, and you can't pronounce some of the ingredients, that should be a telltale sign that you're probably consuming the wrong thing. It goes back to sort of that back to basic sort of philosophy, trying to keep things simple and not making things way out of bounds. If you asked me tonight, or asked me last night what I had for dinner, I had chicken. I spatchcocked the chicken. I didn't fry it. I roasted it. Very simple. I didn't buy anything from a fast food chain or any sort of place. I know exactly what I'm putting in my body. I know exactly what I cooked. It goes back to that. And I think in our society, we've grown to the point where we're always looking for these sort of fast food sort of choices, looking for these sort of quick and easy ways of grabbing a bite to eat or grabbing a meal or a snack or whatnot. If we go back to basics and start cooking for ourselves, we go to a better place. Now, what if you don't have the means to cook for yourself? Then you try to find other ways to do that. But understand what you consume. Understanding what exactly is on your plate makes all the difference in the world. If I can go track it, I know exactly why I track. I track chicken. I'm big on fish. Swordfish. Eat a lot of swordfish. It's easy to track because I know exactly what I'm eating. So, the thing is this. You have to be aware of what you're consuming. You have to have a better relationship with food that way. And truly be true to yourself on what you're consuming. Without question. Go back to the main here for a second. Go through a couple more comments. Sarah says it's worse than sugar. Stevia is okay. Yeah, there are a lot of people that are okay with stevia. I don't want to gravitate to stevia much, but I'm okay with it every now and then. I'm definitely a lot better with that than, say, your can of diet soda that has 19 letter ingredients. Marilyn says hi to everybody. Hi, Marilyn. Hope you're having a great evening for sure. She hopes she can catch this on replay. The replays are available. And by all means, if you have any questions about this content or my story, I'm more than happy to share that with you, either through the recovery groups or my email address, which I'll pop up on screen real quick. theventureforward@gmail.com. The reason why I'm keeping this up for a second is this. We talked a lot about my stories and my chief addictions. But what I want to do going into December, but also into January, is start opening the stories up for you guys. For an incredible community that we've built here. I think it's this. We are all dealing with the phenomenon or the pandemic known as 2020. We're all dealing with these things. We're all dealing with our own addictions, our own roadblocks, our own things that are standing in our way. I want your story to be told by the best person that knows how to tell that story. That'd be you. So if you want to tell your story, there's an email. theventureforward@gmail.com. I would love for you to tell your story and basically, share with this growing community exactly the things that held you back, but moreover, what you're doing to overcome those things, how you're moving forward, how you're making that venture forward. A couple more comments here. Sue had chicken too. Sue, in the comments, how did you have your chicken? Did you roast it? Did you rotisserie it? Did you grill it? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to know. Mark is a Splenda guy. Normally about 2 a day. And the thing is, if you know what Splenda is basically causing you not to do, then do it. But always keep an eye on it. Because Mark then says, it keeps me away from sugar. And I think the thing is, we've grown too attached to sugar. Whether it's the hidden sugars that might be found in a bottle of ranch dressing. Yeah, I said it. Look at the ingredient list. It's there. Or the sugar that's normally found in like a candy bar or in some sort of dessert or some sort of anything, right? We have to be very careful about the sugar we consume and realize that there may be sugar in the things we don't know about. Just being very wise about what we're eating, what we're consuming, and being true to ourselves that way. Good evening. Hope you're doing well. I think the thing is this. I'm going to say this before I go to my last slide, because there is one last slide that has nothing to do with this, but I wanted to share this. I am very blessed and very thankful for all of you, whether we're talking about the recovery groups or we're talking about folks like the folks that I met from Live Streaming Pro or whatnot. You guys are amazing. You guys have helped me in what should be a year that could make anyone just come to grips, especially when you're extroverted like I am. The fact that I'm basically sharing my story and gaining insight from 3 recovery groups, but also being part of this live streaming community. I am thankful for every single one of you. I mean that. Absolutely. Marilyn says you must always read the labels. Absolutely. Without question. Sean says, hi, Mark. Evening, Sue. Hi, Sarah, right back. And Sherry says, sent you a PM with pic of my iced coffee label. Okay. One more slide. I wanted to take a moment out to to say to congratulate a couple people uh, who are having birthdays today. One, a traditional birthday, and the other, a newfound kind of birthdays that us alcoholics know about. But I think, nevertheless, both are worthy of our celebration for sure. I want to wish, first of all, a congratulations to Al Jackson on his 1 year of sobriety. Al is a host on a show called Daily Blast Live. We've become good friends over the years. I'm proud of him. I'm proud of him for sure. It's not easy. This is not easy because we know that we have to keep on doing the hard work here. We need to be doing this one step at a time, one foot in front of the other. We have to always remember that iron does sharpen iron. So, Al, congratulations on your sobriety. 1 year. It's now a year and a day. Congratulations, buddy. And then the other kind of birthday, the traditional kind of birthday, David Foster turns 50 years old today. And David, just as much as Al, awesome friend. I hope you're having the happiest of birthdays for sure. I'm really pleased and really glad to get to know you over the last year or so. So I hope whatever you do today, David, I hope you have the happiest and healthiest of birthdays for sure. Belly button birthday, indeed. Let me go back to Maine real quick and bring that up. Yeah, it's a belly button birthday for Mr. Foster, for sure. I hope he has the best belly button birthday for sure. Mark says, howdy. And Sherry says, we love you too, John. I love you guys. You guys are incredible. We definitely we use the terms of another recovery group that we are all part of, and that of Recovering Addict. We always say we recover better together. I honest to God believe that. We do recover better together. We do grow from our stories, from the things we've learned, and then the ability for us to fulfill the service arm of the triangle and teach and be lend people our ears and our hearts and our minds without question. Quick note for Thursday. Thursday, we're doing something that we normally would do on Fridays. But we're doing it a bit more, almost like an Ask Me Anything, like a live Q&A. So Thursday's episode, which will be 6:30 on Thursday, 6:30 Eastern, 3:30 Pacific, will be a live Q&A, Ask Me Anything. So start thinking about the things you want to talk about, questions you have. You want to talk about the roadblocks that held you back. You want to bring that up on the show on Thursday? Absolutely. This is the place to do it. We would love to do that. It's not a VF talk per se. There is no Triceratops who thinks he's a T-Rex. It'll be just us. But I think given the topics we talked about in the last few weeks, of alcoholism, overeating, gambling, co-addiction, codependency, all of that, I think there are things that we should talk about, and how that sort of realization and the ways we treat that become very apparent to us. So, I'm looking forward to Thursday for sure. Sherry says also that we certainly do recover better together. And without question, we do. Without question, we do. On that, I will tell you the same thing I tell you at the end of every single venture forward. Stay safe. Stay sane. Stay strong. Stay sober. You deserve it. I'll see you on Thursday night for a live Q&A in AMA and Ask Me Anything at 6:30 Eastern, 3:30 Pacific. And quick question that came in. The Q&A is the same time as this show at 6:30 Eastern, 3:30 Pacific. It's not no change in time schedule there. It's in this time slot, 6:30 Eastern, 3:30 Pacific on Thursday for the Ask Me Anything. And what I'll do is on Thursday morning, I will put out an eCam Live link for you to use, and we can bring you on. We could talk about anything that's on your mind. because that's what we do. We do recover better together, for sure. Sherry says, "Perfect. I will be there." Sherry, I hope I hope you are. I can't wait for you to be on the show, or to at least be watching it for sure. So stay safe, stay sane, stay strong, stay sober. You're worth it. We'll see you Thursday night, 6:30 Eastern, 3:30 Pacific, for an Ask Me Anything, a live Q&A. Good night.